Creating a buyer persona is probably one of the most important things you can do before starting any sort of marketing initiatives. But I know, especially when you've never really done it before, it can be a little bit confusing and you might not know how or why you're doing it, because I know when I started in the marketing world, I didn't really understand the concept of a buyer persona either. But by creating a buyer persona, it allows you to pinpoint exactly who it is you want to target and how you're going to do it. Hey, my name is Sydney. I'm the co-founder of Vertex Marketing Agency, and I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how we identify a buyer persona. The fact is that we have the luxury as advertisers to narrow down our targeting to only target the people that we want and the one that, based on data, are more likely to buy and have the highest customer lifetime value. This starts by narrowing down our buyer persona. But first, what is a buyer persona? A buyer persona is a somewhat fictional, generalized representation of your best customers that are described based on demographics, goals, motivations, challenges in their lives. Buyer personas are really useful for marketing efforts and deciding what kind of content should be created in order to actually resonate well with that ideal customer by taking into account the way they consume content online. So for example, a maternity clothing company will have a completely different buyer persona than a woman's fashion clothing company. Because although they do sell somewhat similar products, they're hitting a completely different market. People who wear maternity clothing behave differently online than people who are interested in fashion clothing. They're about to have a baby, so maybe they're more family oriented, they're focused on the feeling of community, and the main solution this brand provides is clothing for women that don't fit in regular clothing anymore. Whereas a fashion clothing brand appeals to, in this example, of course, everyone is going to have their own buyer persona, but let's say for this example, this group of people are very focused on high-end, one-of-a-kind pieces made with very high-quality materials. And the problem that this brand solves is being completely transparent with the clothing making process and creating one-of-a-kind pieces for high-end models, because sometimes that process can be a little bit blurred. So they will have completely different buyer personas, but without properly depicting what that buyer persona might look like, it might get mixed in with other brands that don't have the same values as them, and it might not set them apart. So by focusing on the challenges you're solving for and how they consume this content online to actually reach them, you can better define what their ideal buying process might look like. Now, there's really two kinds of businesses which are important to differentiate, which are B2C, where they sell directly to consumers, and the other one is B2B, where they sell directly to businesses. And their buyer personas will differ a little bit. So in the case that you're selling directly to a consumer, this is an individual who uses their own money and buying discretion to make purchasing decisions. A consumer's buyer persona will look a little bit different than a B2B buyer persona, since you don't have to share as much information about their job roles and the responsibilities. Rather, you can focus more on who they are as a person and what they do in their day-to-day life and how they actually go about making individual purchasing decisions. In B2B, the buyer persona is heavily focused on the individual customer, but the specific details about where the ideal customer works, what they do, and how they might interact with the organization are actually really important. In B2B, the buyer persona is not always the one in charge of making that purchasing decision, so those details are really important in the description as well. Creating a good buyer persona really all starts, though, by asking the right questions. So we've created a list of questions you can ask yourself to get a much better understanding of what and who your buyer persona looks like and who it is. And we call this the buyer persona worksheet. This is an amazing exercise you can do with your team and clients as well. In fact, this is actually the exact worksheet we use with our clients when we start working with them. And it's really important that when you're going through this buyer persona worksheet, that you put yourself in your persona's shoes. And it basically runs through about 20 to 25 questions so you can better understand your customer's point of view. So I'd strongly suggest you download it and use it both for yourself and for your clients to identify that buyer persona. And again, this is the first thing we do with our clients because it really sets up a great picture of what kind of business you're going to be working with and what their customers are actually like. And I love it because it also makes you think really clearly about who your best customers are and really defining what their behaviors look like. And now once you go through this worksheet, there are other ways you can do research on that specific buyer persona, because although you might ask the right questions that are in this worksheet, there's so many more ways you can find out information about this buyer persona to really create an accurate representation without just guessing. So I'm going to run you through 4 ways of getting data on your buyer persona. But it's worth mentioning, buyer personas are based on market research and real data about your existing customers. And it's important to recognize that not every customer is worth the squeeze. So your existing customers can be categorized into basically 3 groups. Ideal customers, which are the ones that purchase from you relatively often. They're also known as repeat customers. They leave great reviews. They talk positively about your brand. They are looking for you to get more business. They're usually, really easy to manage. They don't complain much. Those are your ideal customers. Neutral customers, these are customers who might buy from you here and there. They don't cause too much trouble, but they aren't raving advocates about your brand either. Whereas earthquake customers, I'm sure we all have some of these are the ones that leave bad reviews, who might always be on the phone complaining, asking for refunds or, this or that. It's just a matter of time before they either no longer deal with your company or they create a bad reputation for your brand. So when you're looking at data, you should always be looking at the data from your ideal customers and no one else. After all, these are the ones that actually help you grow your business. But now let's review 4 ways you can get data on your buyer persona. The first way is with Google Analytics. Now, you should always have Google Analytics set up on your website, and if you don't, you can check out our other video, how to install Google Analytics on your website. I'll drop it in the description below, so make sure you check that out. But basically, Google Analytics is a really great tool to get information about the users or the customers who are on your website. It can answer questions about demographics like their age and gender, their interests based on the affinity categories like travel or movie lovers, and in segments like business services or advertising. Those are things that they might be interested in. Geography, like their language and their location. Their technology that they're using, so it's a browser, is it an OS, is it Chrome, Safari, or the devices that they're using, is it desktop, mobile, or tablet. It's great for questions you wouldn't really ask your client or your customers because it might be a little bit weird, like, hey John, what kind of device do you use when you browse the web? A little bit weird, Another great Google product that provides you with information is Google Search Console. Google Search Console can tell you what people are typing in Google's search bar in order to find you in the first place. This data can help you identify what the challenges are that they're facing before they land on your website. The second way is with your customer relationship management, or your CRM, or your POS system, your point of sale system. Here you can map out all the customers with the highest lifetime value. The goal is to come up with a list of customers that you can use to do more research on. These are the kind of customers you want to build your buyer persona around and choose to target. After all, the more customers you have with a higher lifetime value, the more successful you will be as a business. The third way is by conducting customer interviews. This is a really great way to answer the majority of the questions asked in the buyer persona worksheet. You could do this by simply talking to the customers on the phone or by sending them a questionnaire. But depending on the size of your company, talking to your best customers on the phone or a video conference call is probably the best way to get your answers. It's very personal, you're gonna see them face to face, and you're gonna get the answers that you're really looking for, as long as they're not too personal. Sometimes people won't really want to disclose any information if they think it's a little bit too personal or even a bit awkward to answer over the phone. So another downside of talking to a customer on the phone, that's a little bit time consuming for both you and the client. So I would suggest that if you decide to use this method, send your interview request via email with a video of you speaking to them directly. I would suggest you also offer a small incentive like a free coffee or a 10% discount to entice more customers to participate. In some cases, talking to your customers on the phone might not be an option if your company is too big or you just can't reach them. So you can use something like Google Forms to send out a questionnaire. The same concept applies here. In exchange for your customers' time, you might choose to give them a small incentive or a little gift. The fourth way is with social media, and it has all kinds of information about all kinds of people. However, I wouldn't suggest you just go snooping around in there trying to look for information on people's profile, because most of them do have their privacy settings on, and it wouldn't really be an efficient way of finding this information. But What we do have is a Facebook Audience Insights tool, which is a powerful tool that comes with your business Facebook page. And it provides you with important data about your target market, including users who visit your Facebook page, who respond to your ads, who engage with your posts, and so many more things. You can even analyze an audience if you import the contact's email and phone number. So in this case, I would strongly suggest you import a list of your best customers from your CRM and identify some characteristics for your buyer persona. So by using this tool, you can collect really invaluable information to help create that buyer persona, such as their age, location, gender, lifestyle, relationships, job title, page likes, household income, purchase behavior, and much, much more. And all this information can be used to create that buyer persona and get a really accurate representation of who that looks like. Your buyer persona will most likely change as you evolve as a business. So just start off with a 1.0 version of your buyer persona and recheck it every 6 to 12 months and making sure that you're still on point with who that is. The overall goal of creating a buyer persona is finding a group of people who have similar challenges and buying behaviors. And once you've done these 4 steps and found those commonalities, you'll be able to create your buyer persona 1.0. Depending on the size of your company though, you may have, 2 to 5 buyer personas, so it's important to really identify those. And that's completely normal, especially if you have multiple services or products, you might tailor to different groups. And here's what the final description might look like. Let's say if you were a supplements company selling health products and vitamins to, moms who have kids. And as you can see, creating a buyer persona is really important before you do any sort of marketing initiatives because you actually want to be able to resonate with people who you're putting content out for. Attracting the wrong crowd is obviously not the goal here. We want high quality leads and a high quality market that we're trying to target. And it all starts with the right messaging towards that persona online. So if you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, let me know. I can answer them for you. Or if you need help with creating your buyer persona and this all seems a little bit confusing, you don't know where to start, just let me know. I want to help you guys out. So just let me know in the comments and we can get in touch.